Dominance and recessiveness. Dominance and recessiveness are not related to the genes, or they are not related to the alleles. These are actually related to the phenotypes. Some of the phenotypes or some of the traits, they are dominant, and some of the traits, they are recessive. Like if a trait appears in a heterozygous form, then the trait would be dominant, and if a trait appears in a homozygous form, then the trait would be recessive. So recessiveness is, if we take the example of the cystic fibrosis appears when both alleles, they are mutated. So if there is homozygosity, if the alleles, they are homozygous, then cystic fibrosis would appear in the affected individuals. So recessiveness is actually when both alleles, they are affected and they are homozygous, then the disease would appear. And if the individuals, they are heterozygous, means they have one normal allele and one mutated allele, then the disease would not appear, although the individual would be the carrier of that disease. Hemizygous is a condition that is usually seen in case of males. In case of males, because there are two chromosomes, one is X chromosome and second is Y chromosome. So those genes or those phenotypes which are due to the genes which are present on either of the sex chromosome, such a phenomena, because there is a single allele present on either on X chromosome or on Y chromosome in case of males, this phenomena is called as hemizygous condition, which is usually seen in males. Here we can see that types of the autosomal disorders. Autosomal disorders that can be due to the recessive alleles, they can be due to the dominant alleles, and they can be due to the codominant alleles. So there are three different patterns of autosomal disorders. Autosomal disorders can be due to the recessive alleles. If they are due to the recessive alleles, we call autosomal recessive diseases. And if the disease is due to the dominant allele or the pattern is autosomal dominant, then they are called as autosomal dominant disorders or autosomal dominant diseases. While if there is a codominant between the alleles, means both alleles, they express in the individual would be called as heterozygous. Such a phenomena is called as codominant alleles. In case of recessive diseases, these are the most common diseases that have been involved with autosomal recessive alleles. While these diseases, they are involved when there is a dominant allele. If one of the allele has a mutation, then these diseases can appear. While in case of codominance, if both alleles, they are present, like in case of sickle cell disease or in case of AB blood group in the humans, then that is called as codominant allele. So autosomal disorders can be divided into three types: recessive alleles, those diseases which are due to recessive alleles, those diseases which are due to dominant alleles, and those diseases which are due to codominant alleles. So these are some of the most common traits that have been seen in case of humans, where we can see that which trait is dominant and which trait is recessive. In case of eye color in humans, the brown eyes, they are dominant over the gray, green, hazel and blue. In case of hair in humans, dark hair, they are dominant over the blonde, light and red hair. Non-red hair, they are dominant over the red hair. Curly hair, they are dominant over the straight hair. In case of facial features, if there are dimples, they are dominant over the no dimples. Unattached earlobe is dominant over the attached earlobe. Broad lips, they are dominant over the thin lips. In case of appendages, extra digits, which are usually called polydactyly. In those individuals, we see 6 fingers in the hands and in the foot. So extra digit, this trait is dominant over the normal number, while clubbed thumbs, they are dominant over the normal thumbs. So this is the difference between the dominant traits and recessive traits. So dominant traits and recessive traits are not due to the alleles, are not due to the genes. So genes, they are not dominant or recessive. These are actually the traits. Traits can be dominant and traits can be recessive. So dominant and recessiveness are two phenomena which are related to the traits. They are not related to the genes. Genes cannot be dominant or recessive, or alleles cannot be dominant or recessive. We should say that traits are dominant or recessive.